So the main point of this video is I, of course, the point of this YouTube channel, more specifically, is to overanalyze things. And as someone who's played Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Spider-Man 2, where you get to play as both Spider-Man, something stood out to me. And it wasn't the story, it wasn't the phenomenal graphics, it wasn't the different suits and things like that. But something stood out to me specifically that felt very intentional, and that was the gameplay mechanics. And specifically in this video, I want to talk about how the gameplay mechanics of Spider-Man 2 are being used in a way that shows Peter Parker and his insecurities compared to Miles Morales. And whoa, before you get too huffing and puffing, I love Peter Parker. Like Peter Parker was my first Spider-Man. I've watched the 90s animated show. I've seen all the Spider-Man movies. At my last job, people would call me Spidey. Like, I am a Spider-Man fan through and through. Whatever flavor, whatever, doesn't matter. Does not matter. I have you can't see me now, but I'm holding up the Into the Spider-Verse art book. I am Spider-Man. Okay? I love Spider-Man. But I do feel like Insomniac was very intentional with how they portrayed Peter, especially in relationship to Miles. So in this video, we're going to get into that. I'm going to do a little bit of ranting, a little bit of yapping, but hopefully we all have a good time. All right, guys, welcome back to It's Not That Deep. This video is going to have spoilers for Insomniac Spider-Man 2. So if you haven't played the game, pause the video, put it on your watch later, come back, and then let me know what you think. And if you don't care about spoilers, or you have played the game, welcome. We're going to jump right into it. But first, let's get into some stuff that's going on, right? This video, of course, is going to be coming out right after the Game Awards Balder Sweep. And as someone who's played or been playing both games, I love them both. They both serve two different purposes. One of them's an open world RPG that is just insanely different from playing as a superhero. And they're just different games. I feel like a better Game Awards show would have more niche categories as far as best open world game and best role-playing game, best adaptation of a book or manga or comic book medium. Things of that nature. Things that are more inclusive and more descriptive of what games actually are these days. I mean, we're not in the Pac-Man and Pong era anymore. We're in this day and age where there's some games that are just some big name actors and they're just kind of there performing a movie. Then you also have the Telltale. Well, I'm not getting into it. Regardless, if you like it, you like it. Nobody can take that from you. And that's the important part about this, is that nobody can take what you like from you. Nobody can really change your opinion. People can sway it, but they can't change it. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about Spider-Man 2. And I guess to give you a little bit of history between me and Spider-Man, I first got into Spider-Man when I was pretty young. And with most people my age, in their 30s, early 30s, late 20s, you probably got introduced to him through the 90s animated show. And my uncle used to send us VHSs because we didn't have cable growing up of shows like Power Rangers, X-Men, the animated series from the 90s, the Batman animated series. And on occasion, there'd be a animated Superman show from the 90s, which is why Toyman is one of my favorite Superman villains. I love that episode with him and that freaking duck. Like, oh my god, just amazing. Like peak creepiness. And this is coming off of like, Goosebumps, 90s, ventriloquist dummy episodes and books, right? So, peak design by Toyman in that sense. But in all of those shows, in all those episodes, one of the ones that jumped out to me in the core was the Spider-Man 90s animated show. Now, just to give you a little history, the animated series debuted on November 19th, 1994, and finished airing on January 31st, 1998. It only had 65 episodes, which is wild. And yet, to this day, it still remains one of the most groundwork fundamental versions of Spider-Man for myself and so many other people. Now, the original show followed Peter Parker and as the late teenager, maybe early 20s. I'm not too sure. You watch some episodes of that show and it seems like, of course he's in college. And I'm sure, somebody's going to be correcting me. Thank you. But, he's built like a 30-year-old, but he looks, he acts very much like a maybe 20, 21-year-old. But the show kind of follows him in that early adult stage of his life, trying to balance his life and also hide his secret identity from his Aunt May, and also trying to balance that with his love life, whether it was Felicia Hardy, who is Best Girl, or Mary Jane Watson, who in that series was problematic. And I don't use that word lightly, but she was kind of always in the throes of danger. And it's like, girl, pull yourself together. I just like my Edna Mode voice. Yeah. But anyway. And in turn, Peter Parker's love and obsession, I probably shouldn't have put this in here, but here it is. With Mary Jane. I wanted to be him so bad. I wanted to be Spider-Man so bad that I ended up dating a redhead in college. Yeah, it was just, just but this was before I found out that there were a bunch of, soulless. I kid, mostly. But I'm getting sidetracked. I love Spider-Man and have for nearly 3 decades. And so when Insomniac announced that Spider-Man 2 was coming out, I pre-ordered it. And yes, I'm one of those gamers who on occasion does pre-order. I know it's bad, but, when you're an adult who works between 40 and 60 hours a week, and barely has time to see your fiance because you're working nights, and, well, you need something to kind of keep you going, so the whip. And a couple years ago, when PS5 was announced, I bought a PS5 to simply play the Miles Morales' Spider-Man game. And this was, I think I was also on nights at a different job. And I misread the information because I thought that the Miles Morales game was only coming out on PS5. So, of course, I can't miss out on a Spider-Man game. Me? No, I am Spider-Man. Come on. So that brings us to the topic of today. And that topic is the game mechanics and how that's being used to show Peter Parker's inherent and just basic comparisons to Miles. So for those of you that played the Miles Morales Spider-Man game, Spider-Man 2, well, the second Spider-Man game, the nomenclature of these games, let's take a side step. The nomenclature of these games gets quite confusing, but I get it. So, I might get the numbers a little mixed up, but regardless, in Spider-Man Miles Morales, you play as Miles Morales, and within that game, you have abilities that Peter Parker simply does not have. You have invisibility, you have the Venom shocks, just to name a couple. And from a gameplay standpoint, it leads to some of the most powerful feeling and just adventurous gameplay that you can get your hands on. And you compare that to Spider-Man Peter Parker, who has some very interesting gadgets in the first game. Now, in that first Spider-Man game, you have a plethora of gadgets that are used to do what you need to do. And they're all pretty fun. So, of course, the basic first gadget that you have is the web shooter, which is kind of your go-to attack mode outside of punching and kicking. Then you have impact web, which lets you pack a punch with your web. And if your ops are close enough to a solid object, you kind of get to stick them to it, which is one of my favorite gadgets in that game. You also have the spider drone, which is just a cute little guy trying his best, doing his best. You have electric web, which is pretty straightforward. Web bomb, which sends out webs in all directions, webbing up all your enemies, leaving them available for some sick ass combos. Then you have trip mine, which activates and webs up an enemy to a surface as they walk past it. You also have concussive blast, which sends out a shocker-esque wave, knocking people off their feet and knocking shit over like the Rhino in the China shop. And finally, you have the suspense matrix, which basically shoots people up into the air into this weird anti-gravity well, and leaving them open for some sick ass air attacks and combos, which I suck at. Like, within that game, I still have not platinumed it because of that one mission where you have to get 100 hit combo. And I'm like, come on. This feels personal towards me. But I digress. And within the first Spider-Man game, the game uses all of these gadgets to kind of make it feel like the Batman Arkham-esque, where you can approach missions from different standpoints. You can go stealthy, which is healthy, or you can go just loud and proud. And, I myself, I always try to start out healthy. Always try to start out healthy and stealthy, but one guy sees me and boom, jig is up. But there's just something really sweet about that impact web and that electric web. It's just chef's kiss. All right, so those are the gadgets of Spider-Man 1. And let's get into Spider-Man Miles Morales, where Peter Parker's on a vacation, and he's been Spider-Man for 7 to 8 years, which is insane, being the only protector in air quotes. And I'm using that in air quotes because, like, we've seen the Avengers Tower and the Fantastic Four places, like all these places within Easter eggs of the game. So we don't really know how true only hero is, but they have yet to show up. I know that much. And when we get into Spider-Man Miles Morales' game, we see that, Peter is going on a vacation for the first time in nearly a decade, especially after becoming Spider-Man. And it's probably been the only time that he's been able to go on a vacation because, let's be honest, Aunt May was not flush with cash, and vacations are still a privilege for many. Pete's no exception. And in that game, holy shit, Miles has all the same abilities as Peter and then some. So it's like, wow, how fucking cool. Invisibility for stealth, electric powers out the fucking ass, and the coveted no talk jutsu. Excuse me, talk no jutsu. I fucked that up. But we'll get to that later. So, let's skip over to Spider-Man 2, which is where we have these comparisons being made. So let's get into it. Why I really want to make this video. And that stems from the identity of these two characters. And this is not on any woke shit. So if you got that, this is not the channel for you. Like if you want to get in the comments and woke Spider-Man, just find another channel, you know. Because I really want to talk about the identities of these two individuals. So Peter Parker, of course, is, you know, a white Jewish kid from New York. And in the comics, he's Jewish. He's not really portrayed that way in most media outside of comic books. And then you have Miles Morales, who's a mixed kid, half Puerto Rican, you know, half black, in New York. And let's talk about their differences when it even comes to their identity, their secret identity specifically. Pete, very early on within the universe of the games, at least does not tell too many people about his secret identity. Even up to this point, 7, 8, 9 years later, there's still only a handful of people that willingly know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. You have Mary Jane Watson, of course, is on again, off again. You have now Harry Osborn in the second game. You have Aunt May from the first game, who always knew, which ripped my heart out. And you have Miles Morales and Rio Morales. And I'm sure I'm probably forgetting a person or two. Of course, you know, Doc Ock, but that's not too many people, especially this late in the in his tenure as Spider-Man. Now let's compare that to Miles Morales, where we have, you know, of course, all the people I just named, except for Doc Ock. We have Miles's girlfriend, or Flame, Haley. We have Miles's best friend, Genki. We have, let's see, his uncle Aaron. We have, who else do we have? Oh! His arch nemesis. Mr. Negative himself knows now that Miles is Spider-Man. And one thing that I've seen people talk about online is, you know, and I'm going to bring in Kamala Khan. If you haven't seen Miss Marvel TV show on Disney Plus, you absolutely should. But this is not me advertising for Disney, who is doing some weird stuff right now. But one thing that those two do have in common, Miles Morales and Kamala Khan, is that they're both children of color. And in both of their iterations within the game and within the MCU, we see the difficulties of the secret identity, and how with characters like them who are people of color, that who they are with the mask is also who they have to be without the mask. Hopefully I said that right. Spider-Man Miles Morales and Miles Morales are the same person. They just are. They simply are within the Insomniac game. There's, I mean, he's everybody that's important to Miles knows that he is Spider-Man. And the same could be said about Kamala Khan. Everybody that's important to her, which is mostly her family and her friends, knows that she is Miss Marvel. And that just clarity on identity is something that we don't get with a lot of older, more white superheroes. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the secret identity when it comes to the public. Like when it comes to people outside of your core group of family and friends, you absolutely should wear a mask, which is why Miles still wears a mask. It's why Kamala still wears a mask. I think And because you do still have something worth protecting. But even within both of those people and within compared to Peter, is that one thing that you do have with Miles that you don't have with Peter is a sense of family. With Peter, sadly, it's just him and his Aunt May. And one of his biggest reasons for never telling her is that he felt like that revelation would kill her, at least in the comics. And with Miles, his identity as a half black, half Latino superhero, his parents are always watching him for his own safety. You know, this world is not too kind to people who don't look like Pete. So his identity, his presence is always monitored, whether that's by his family or people that wish him harm. He's often just seen. So people like Miles, people like Kamala are not afforded the safety that you might get with more white presenting characters such as Pete. And it's a interesting point, and it's a point that's leading into my second point and the big point of this video. So this point of Peter's own feeling of self-imposed mediocrity and his insecurities compared to Miles comes about after, in the game, when Pete acquires the symbiote and he has the black suit and it's already warped his mind, and you know he's already told Harry to, why don't you take some more pills, bitch? And like he's already like kind of smacked MJ around in the black suit after he was like sleep. Oh, I love sleeper black suit Spider-Man. Spectacular Spider-Man, phenomenal. It did that phenomenally. But I'm getting sidetracked. We see the fight scene between Pete and Miles, which is just next level hype. I mean, good God. Like seeing Miles go up like a boss fight with Spider-Man, that's the thing of dreams. Like that's the thing of nightmares also. But you know, you really kind of get to see like how powerful Spider-Man is. Like he's not really holding back. And one of the things that Pete says to Miles within that fight, which stuck out to me the moment I heard him say it, was that you're not better than me, Miles. You're not better than me, Miles. Which that kind of made me like it that one line made me start this YouTube channel, because I was like, holy shit, where did that come from? At no point in the fight is Miles telling Pete, I'm better than you, bitch. Thwip, thwip, I'm invisible. Like, thwip, thwip, you can't see me. Hadouken. None of that. Miles is there trying to support Pete. He's there as a friend. He's there as a mentee. He's there as a part of that family that Peter has that's grown. And yet, that black suit, some people talk about whether whether it corrupts Pete or whether it just brings out the darkness in him. And I feel like with anybody, it just kind of brings out the darkness that already resides within the human part of people. And sometimes that's a crave for power, it's a crave for survival. And other times that's just a craving for just being enough. And prior to Miles, Pete was the only Spider-Man. He was the only protector of New York as a child. I mean, the man became Spider-Man as a kid, much like Miles. And he had amazing powers, still does. Wall crawling, spider sense, some super speed to a degree, super strength, pretty much invulnerability for the most part. The man is peak superhero designing when it comes up to powers. Like, he's strong enough to the point where you know, he's not gonna lose to an average thug, but he's also like not too strong, like to the point where like you have to invent some kryptonite for him. But that line stuck out to me, and it made me think about the game in a different lens, because coming from Spider-Man 1, going into Spider-Man Miles Morales, going into Spider-Man 2, the gadgets in Spider-Man 1 were a lot more prevalent. I mean, there were gadgets out the ass. They were damn near infinite once you get to a certain ability level. And in this game, the gadgets are rare. They serve more storyline focus, and they aren't meant to be a crutch in this game as they were in the first game. They're kind of meant to like aid you, but not help you sweep the board. And that's interesting because you compare Pete's gadgets to Miles's powers, and the way that Insomniac had to even give, when it came to traversal, they gave Pete the Doc Ock mechanical spider legs. Because the idea of, just from a gameplay standpoint, of going from somebody who can turn invisible, do electric shots, shoot across the map, to somebody who can simply just is the Spider-Man. He's Spider-Man. He can just swing webs and he's stronger than Miles. It, from a gameplay standpoint, it lowers the momentum of the game. And that's something you never really want to do in any sort of storytelling standpoint. You never want people to feel like, god damn, I gotta play as Pete. You don't want that. Like, you don't want the Spider-Man 1 MJ effect of, like, you know, when you're playing this Pete and Miles and then you get to MJ and it's like, oh great, you know, I'm just hide and seek mini game. Great. You don't want that. I mean, I didn't have too much of a problem with the MJ missions, just because, like, I'm a fucking Spider-Man shill, I guess, you know, through and through. But yeah. So the idea that they limited Pete's gadgets in this game, and they also had to give him the arms and things of that nature, the symbiote, to even have him stand up to Miles. And yet during that fight, which is a plot point, he still loses against Miles. And of course, Pete wants to lose. Like, there's that part of Pete that wants Miles to beat him. And one thing that I feel like this game alludes to but never really talks about too much, it's kind of scattered in Pete's story in the background, is this masculine urge to simply be enough. Pete's been Spider-Man for nearly a decade. The man has not gotten a break. In this entire game, you feel how exhausted and how tired Pete is. You want him to just slow down, to just stop, to just take a break. And in the one scene where we actually see Pete go to sleep, he's still not resting. The symbiote's taking over. It's doing it for him. That is just so fucked up. That Pete, in all of his heroic abilities and all of his power, feels less than. And even so, he feels less than someone who's coming after him. Which is kind of that same feeling that I feel like a lot of older generations, boomers specifically, feel about younger generations. And I'm talking about, you know, the good boomers. You know, maybe your uncle or your aunt or your, you know, I don't know, some of you, maybe your granddad, who have done these great things, who have done these amazing things, who have helped pave the way for family members and friends and just other members of their community. And this kind of inherent secret stewing animosity that they have for the younger crowd who come up and don't have those same struggles. Miles does not have the same struggles as Pete. He simply doesn't. Their upbringings were different. The world that they first got introduced to was different. Pete was brought up during this time where I'm just assuming, but there weren't too many superheroes. And now Pete has help. He has Mary Jane Wixon. He has Miles Spider-Man Morales. He has Silver Sable. He has Black Cat. He now has a community. He doesn't need to go as hard. And yet, one of the people that's there trying to help him is making him feel inadequate. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people can relate to. It's that seeing someone who loves you so much surpass you. Surpass your abilities. Surpass things that you created as milestones. And one thing that the game eventually ends up leaning into, towards the end, of course, is when Pete decides to just take a step back. He has Miles meet up with him and tells him, and before he could even get the words out, he's fumbling over his word. Miles is like, I know, man, I got it. And I feel like that scene is so important because it's something that we don't often get with Spider-Man, that we don't often get with a lot of Marvel and DC heroes within the comics. We don't really get to see them stop. Just stop. Like there's more than enough people that can help at this point. It does not have to be you. And I feel like the ultimate kind of message to be taken from this game is the importance of community, the importance of a support system, and the importance of having people that have your back and that are willing to tell you no, that are willing to tell you when you've gone too far, that are willing to keep you in check. And not saying that you need to be this outrageous venom monster who can't be put into check, but you know, if you're a decent enough person and self-aware enough and you have these people, listen to them. Pete finally listened to MJ and Miles. He needed a break. He's taking that break. The man never really truly got a chance to be a late teenager, let alone an adult. Who knows where Pete would have gone to college had he not been Spider-Man. He probably would have gone out of state, maybe even. But because he felt like he was obligated to be that person, and he's been that person, he's been him for so long, they're having to almost pry his hands off the reins. Let somebody else take over. And the game tells that story phenomenally, start to finish. This tired individual who gets this boost of power. I don't need any help. He's ignoring Miles' calls. I got it. At the sake of his own friend's life. And the game handles it pretty well. So, that's all I have for that one. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed. All right, everybody. I just want to say thank you for watching the video. If you like videos like this, kind of just rambling, long form analysis videos, video essays, go ahead and give me a follow. I greatly appreciate it. To my 4 subscribers, thank you so much. I mean, I have like over 20 views on my first video, and I kind of like to think about views and stuff like that in terms of like the idea of like the, you know, I mean, because everybody that's viewed is a real person, but just the idea of like me sitting there for 20-25 minutes and there's just 20 people listening to me is absurd. Like, thank you so much. But yeah, videos to come. I mean, like I've kind of said in the first video, I'm a fan of everything. I try to view things through a positive lens. I try to like more things than I dislike, because I feel like it makes the world a lot easier to go through. But I'm really into Avatar, as you can tell from the first video. I'm really into Spider-Man, Legend of Korra. Um, I've really been into Baldur's Gate lately. So maybe I might do a Baldur's Gate video and like Baldur's Gate and religion and stuff like that. Um, but I'm trying not to do videos on things that I really don't know too much about. Just talk what you know, do what you know. But yeah, I might even do a video on what I think like Across the Spider Verse sequel might be. I have a really good idea, and like I'd really like to get it down on paper before like we see the movie. So maybe that'll be like my next video. Um, but yeah, all the footage from this video came from me playing Spider-Man PS5. So and this is coming after a few weeks of the game coming out, and I stopped playing it a little bit after I beat the main story. So I'm a little rusty. But if there's anything as far as like TV shows that you'd like me to talk about, cartoons, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, Fiona and Cake, anything in the Avatar universe. I've read all the books, like the actual books, the Dawn of Kyoshi, Rise of Kyoshi, Legacy of Yon Chen, Dawn of Yon Chen. Um, Probably will do a video on those. Um, so if there's anything like that that you'd like a video on, just let me know. Can't say that I will make it ASAP. As you can see, it's taking me a minute, but I'm a working man. But anyway, thank you all so much. Like and subscribe, and there's more content to come.